Hi guys, how you doing? You may notice something a little bit unusual in this particular video, other than the fact that I'm filming it in a different place. I'm wearing some rather unusual clothes. As I'm sure you know if you've been watching my videos for a little while, I'm a catch wrestler. I've been involved in and training in wrestling for years and years and years. I got into it because it's a historical European martial art, and I found out almost by chance that there was still this very small living lineage of catch-as-catch-can wrestlers out there teaching the art as it had been passed down to them for decades and decades and centuries. So I started studying that. For a long time I've been trying to get some catch wrestling training going, and there's a small group of people who've occasionally trained with me. But if I'm being completely honest, I've really stalled as a grappler because of the lack of training opportunities available to me. And I'm in a bit of an odd position, because as far as catch wrestling goes, I've trained with some of the greatest people ever. I've been very lucky, and I've trained with people like Billy Robinson. I've trained with people like Marty Jones, like Wade Shallers, like Josh Barnett. You know, some really top level guys. They're absolute top of the food chain. So that in some ways, I'm way ahead of the game when it comes to grappling. You know, I see things that standard people are doing in an ordinary way, and it makes me cringe. Yet in some ways, I'm so far behind the game that it's really quite spectacular. So once or twice over the last couple of years, I've thought I ought to try Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, BJJ. And I had a few trial lessons with a few people, and for a number of reasons, mainly the fact that my son was very ill. He's not now, but he was then. It just didn't happen. It never came off. But recently, a friend of mine who's predominantly a kickboxing and karate instructor, but he also happens to be a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, started up a club at the gym where I train on a night that I can get to. And I thought, why not? Let's give it a go. So what I thought I'd do is give you some of my thoughts as a wrestler starting training in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in a gi, kimono. I've never grappled in one of these before. Obviously I've fought and trained in them. I did karate for 8 years, so this is a very different thing now. This is a much heavier, much stronger, much tougher piece of kit than the karate gi that I was used to training in. And it changes the game massively. For a long time now, when I've been rolling with somebody, when I've been wrestling or grappling, whatever you want to call it, I've been aware of what's going on because I can kind of feel what's going on. If somebody's got weight or pressure on you or they're blocking a body part, you can feel that, and you can react accordingly. And you can work around what they're doing. If they've got hold of you, you know they've got hold of you. If they haven't got hold of you, you know they haven't got hold of you. If somebody's maybe got hold of your head, you can feel pretty quickly whether they've got it securely or whether with a little bit of effort you're going to be able to wiggle free. And that doesn't happen when you've got one of these things on. All of a sudden, people can have hold of you and you don't know. And that changes things significantly. On a couple of occasions at the class last week, I was in a situation where I felt fairly safe and fairly familiar and at home, and I went to move in a certain direction, and I moved into what was clearly a trap, and I ended up choking myself out. I had my head caught in one occasion, and I managed to pop my head out, but the guy I was running with had managed to get hold of the collar of my gi, and as I popped out, I effectively choked myself out on my own collar. So that's something that I'm finding really very interesting. It's forcing me to slow down. It's forcing me to make sure that I know exactly what's going on rather than just assume I am. And also, a lot of my natural instincts as a wrestler aren't necessarily very helpful when fighting in BJJ. The rule set's very different. In wrestling, in catch wrestling, you can win by pinning your opponent as well as submitting them. So getting the shoulder blades back on the ground is a win. In BJJ, clearly that's not the case. So what tends to happen is, as I'm moving around, or as my opponent moves me, I'm instinctively trying to keep my back off the ground without really thinking about it. That's just what I do. And that caused me a few problems as well. So that's something that I'm on a very steep learning curve for. I've got to try and control what I'm doing rather than just react instinctively. And also, the converse is true, in that I'm very good at getting my opponent's shoulders on the ground, because that's pretty much the end game for me in my grappling to press. And that doesn't necessarily help me. Now obviously if I can get to side control, to scarf hold, head and arm, whatever you want to call it, if I can get to that position, there's a lot I can do from there. But that position in and of itself is a winning position in catch wrestling. If you've got their shoulder blades on the ground, you've won. You don't have to then go on to apply a submission hold. Thankfully, some of the guys that I've trained with have been very, very detailed about these and shown exactly where these submission holds are. So I've got quite a lot of experience of that. So if I can get to these positions, then I can work well. But that's not always easy, because my instincts are working against me a lot of the time. So I'm having a lot of fun at the moment. I'm really enjoying the gi. I don't really consider myself to be a Jiu-Jitsu player. Maybe one day I will. I consider myself to be a wrestler who's doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. But we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you informed. And yeah, let me know what you think. Do you train in BJJ? Do you train in catch? Which do you think's better? Have you come across these same things? Let me know. And if you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. It makes me really happy. Take care guys, I'll see you soon.